Hey guys, it's Melissa Morrow with Vintage Redesign, and today I'm going to go back to a little bit of my thrift flips that I like to do. And I've had this kind of old chest, I think it was a filing cabinet, on my shelf for a long time. I am going to start off by applying 2 coats of Slick Stick by Dixie Belle to the entire thing. Slick Stick is perfect when you want to cover something that has a high gloss finish or metal or glass. We have been in high production mode, so excuse the messy background. I am using my Klingon round brush and I am applying some of DIY paint Prom Queen to the top and then to the bottom aviary. And then I'm going to do a simple blending technique. DIY paint sticks really well to metal. The reason I chose to use Slick Stick is because sometimes when you're blending on a slick surface, then it tends to pull up the paint if it hasn't dried all the way, and blending sort of requires the paint to be wet. So in order to do this, I use my misting bottle and I mist over the entire area. I've done a base coat where both the blue and the green are touching, but now I want to blend it. So this is my second coat and I'm going over that again and then allowing the paint literally to cover the blue to go over the green and vice versa. Then I'm going to take a second clean brush, or rather a third clean brush, and I'm going to just lightly blend them together. Just simply drag along up and down until I'm happy with the blend. This is not a perfect blend. I am not brushed by Brandy, but it is a nice soft blend which will work really well on this piece. If you aren't happy with the blend at this point, you could let it dry and do a third coat exactly the same. But again, I'm not going for perfection. So after 2 coats, I am going to use another clean brush and I am going to apply DIY's liquid patina. Eventually, I'm going to wax this, but I plan on adding transfers next, and I prefer to add transfers over the liquid patina than the wax. It is not recommended to use transfers over wax. So I'm just going to do 1 coat here, but I'm going to make sure to hit all of the surfaces, then let it dry completely. For this project and my next couple of projects, these are all using scraps that I have on hand. And I happen to have one of these sheets from the Scriptures set of minis by Redesign with Prima. I really like it on this project. I think it's the perfect saying and it's the perfect dimensions. So what could be better? I do want to do some layering here. So really I'm just making sure how it's going to fit, and then I'm going to start layering around it, but before I put this down. Going through my stash, I realized that I have a bunch of sunflowers, enough to cover this box the way I want. So I've pulled those out of my scrap bin, and as you can see, I'm going to wrap this around the side. To make it easy, I have laid it over where I want the words to be and creased it so I'll know exactly how to lay it. The reason I haven't put the scripture down yet is because I want to be sure that the letters go over the sunflowers, not the sunflowers going over the letters. And as you can see, if you ever let it stick to something else, it is garbage. I decided to leave this clip in here to let you know we all make these mistakes. So that transfer was basically scrap. So I'm just pulling out another one and going to do the same exact thing, but make sure the way that I layer it, I get that scripture out of the way all the way. I'm sure by now you've seen all of us do transfers a million times, so I'm not going to belabor this. I am simply going to use my sunflowers and work my way around the entire tote. I'm going to do it on all 4 of the sides and have them wrapping around. After they're all on, I'm going to use a burnishing pad, or sometimes called a polishing pad, and work that over all of my transfers. This makes sure nothing is loose. It's put into all the little crevices, and this will help minimize the halo effect on your transfers. Once I have all of my sunflowers added, I'm going to go ahead and add that scripture font to the beginning, the front of my tin box. I really love how this sort of worked in there, and the idea that I wanted to showcase here is really to give it some forethought what you want on top. I knew I wanted the scripture here from the beginning, but I wanted it to overlap the flowers. So it really is about thinking about the layering process from the beginning. Even though I sort of wing it a lot, framing out the things that you want to advance is very helpful. Now remember, I went around all four sides of the box with my sunflower transfers, but that's not the only surface that's visible. So I decided to come back and go ahead and add some more transfers to the top. In this case, I am adding some, again, of my scraps that I already have. I typically file these in clear envelopes by the type of transfer: florals, typography, bugs, animals, whatever. And in this case, I'm adding some little florals and then some little insects. I'm really enjoying the Bug Whisperer transfer set. It's a MIDI and there's tons of little bugs. I'm putting them on leaves and on the top of the box and in various places. It's a fun set. After I added all of my transfers, I went ahead and gave everything a light sand. I did not want this to look like a brand new piece, so that's why it looks a little bit roughed up. And then I'm adding a coat of DIY paints, clear wax across the entire thing. DIY's clear wax is my absolute favorite because it is so soft and creamy and really has a hard coat. So here is the final product. I love the addition of all of the little critters on it. I think it goes really nicely with the overall theme, and I think it goes perfectly with the saying on the front. Tell me what you think. Do you like it? Do you wish I'd not put on the bugs? Let me know in the comments. And here's a quick reminder that you can follow us on all social media at Vintage Bee Design, and we have a community in Facebook called Creating the Hive or Creative Con Vintage Bee, and I have just started a new coaching group. Membership is only $20 a month. Links in the description below. Let's get back to crafting. For this next project, I used some decoupage paper that I had left over from another project. I liked the pretty pink flowers, but it was way too much. So I decided I'm going to add a lot of texture, and those flowers are going to blend in, believe it or not. I am using Dixie Belle's basket weave stencil. I'm using chalk paste, which is a thicker product than chalk paint, and it is by Redesign with Prima. I'll leave links in the description below. But I am just going to go over this. I am not going to make a nice clean edge, but I am going to do probably about 3/4, maybe 80% of this entire board using this stencil. The good thing is it is one that is a repeating stencil, so you can move it and the graphic repeats. I am also using a Redesign with Prima spread pal, which is like a little squeegee set, and it makes this very easy work. Once the chalk paste is dry, I'm going to add some DIY crinoline and mix that with some salt wash. I want this to be pretty thick. Again, I'm going to use this to add texture over this. And what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to grout, if you will, the areas where we have the basket weave, so that we're just going to cover it completely, but we want to fill in the areas so that you don't see the background anymore. And we are going to leave some of that original decoupage paper exposed because it will show in the final design. So I'm speeding this along a little bit with the heat gun, and I wanted to point out a couple of things. In some thicker areas, I am starting to see some cracking, which I really love. And I'm also seeing little bits of blue, and that seem to be coming through. And I'm not sure entirely if that is from the salt wash, because the salt wash does have little tiny blue flakes in it. And because I mixed it with DIY's crinoline, I'm not sure if it's, somehow activating with that. I'm not worried about it, but that is a curiosity. I've never had that happen before, and I have mixed it with DIY paint, but I do like how I can see the texture from the brick. My next step is lots of sanding. I didn't film the sanding because, it's just sanding. I used 220 grit sandpaper, and I did do it by hand. Now I'm using DIY's liquid patina, and I'm going to apply 2 coats of the liquid patina. You can really see how nicely the brick is showing up afterwards. And somehow I missed filming me layering all these transfers. But again, these are all scrap transfers, all from a variety of different tubes that I had left over. It's really about just looking at the open space and figuring out what you want on top and what you want underneath. I would love to hear your feedback. Do you like this sort of random use of random patterns or not? And for our third and last project, I have another board that I have decoupaged, and I've put beads around the side. And this is actually from the same decoupage tube, and they were coordinating. And I'd done the big one of this steer on a dresser, and these were little ones I had left. So I'm using some of Redesign with Prima's rust paste effects, and this is great. Still using the same little squeegees from Prima as well, and this is a little bit runnier than I might like, although I do like the effect in the end. But I'm just pushing it through as a raised stencil the same way that I did before, and this time I am using a Redesign with Prima. I believe this is a tribal stencil. I will leave links in the description below, but you'll see where we're going with this. Once those raised stencils are completely dry, I'm coming in with Dixie Belle's patina paint in the color copper, and I am going to do one coat, kind of covering these stencils completely and working my way around the steer. I want this to be like the steer is centered in the middle of this and a rusting effect on the sides of it. After the first coat is dry, maybe an hour later, then I am going to go ahead and do a second coat with the copper patina. And this one, I am trying to leave some texture here to go over this as well. You notice the pouncing. I don't like the smooth surface of the deco, so I want to be sure I do that. And while this patina is still wet, I'm grabbing the yellow, which is new patina, and the green patina, and I am using pointed satch brushes to just sort of dab it around. You could spray if you want, but in this case, I'm just dabbing it, and I'm going to do this on the beads as well. When you are using this patina paint, you want to be in a well-ventilated area, and if you have sensitive skin, you may want to wear gloves. This is very ammonia smelling, so just be cognizant of that. You can already start to see some of the reaction of the green on the copper, and again, I'm just trying to use the yellow and then sort of a random pattern. After about 10 minutes, starting to see the effect of the green and the yellow patinas together, I decided it needed more depth. So I pulled out the blue patina spray as well, and I'm just going to kind of work that into some of the areas, making sure that you can still see some of the copper underneath. I just really thought it needed a little more depth. And so here's what it looks like when it's dry. You can see all the levels of color from the green patina to the yellow patina to the blue patina. And now I am just taking my liquid patina by DIY, and I'm going to give this 2 good coats. I want to stop the rusting at this point. Here's a good look at it with the top coat dried. And this is where you could stop if you wanted to, but the whole time it was drying, all I could see were the white feet, and I didn't want to do those and start over the rust, so I decided that I would add a little bit of white to match the top. And I'm really glad I did this, although I'm going to admit it was pretty scary at first. I didn't have a sea sponge, so I took a dauber sponge that I have and just sort of ripped it apart, and I'm trying to pat off most of the paint and then go over the patina. The idea here is just to keep layering. I'm gonna sand this back because I want to be able to see that raised stencil, so don't panic yet. And now I'm taking a low grit sandpaper, and I am pretty heavily going at this. I want to get rid of probably about 20 to 30% of the white that you're seeing, and I want that raised stencil to show through the rust effects that we've done. It's one of the reasons I chose rust. And just to add a little tiny bit of shine back, I am coming back with some of Redesign with Prima's mica powder, and I'm going to add this just in very small spaces. I don't want a lot of this on here, but I just kind of want to use it almost like decrepit dust, but with a shimmer. Now, I did these projects the Monday before we left for America's Mart, so I'm super pleased to see that these rusty patinas are going to be in style for the foreseeable future. You'll see a lot more videos like this showing off these techniques because baby, are they in or what? And if you haven't watched my market videos, be sure to catch. I have day 1, day 2 up, and day 3 wrap up will be on Tuesday. If you enjoyed this video and you want more content like this, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share with a friend. It really helps.